Welcome, everyone, to Pursuing Joy, where we discuss audacious stories of joy-infused strength. We are in the middle of a Working Genius series, and I have James here. I'm going to have him introduce himself, where he's located, his company, and what he's currently doing with Working Genius. Welcome, James.
Hey, Julie, thanks for having me. My name is James Mayo. I'm the founder and CEO of Coaching California. And by the name of my company, I guess it's pretty obvious that I am in California. I'm in Northern California, just south of Sacramento. Working Genius has been really a game changer for me. It was the program that ultimately helped me decide that being an independent contractor was my passion, my goal in my life. And so the one program really did influence the way I thought. And it also just gave me some courage and some really self-forgiveness and grace because it helped me realize like my strengths are my strengths. And, if you look, what inspired me was thinking about my own journey in that my resume was about 4 pages long. And I looked back at my past jobs and I always questioned why I didn't feel fulfilled or energized. I did well in them. I never felt fulfilled or energized in these jobs. Then when I read 6 Types of Working Genius by Lencioni and ultimately got certified in the program, it helped me realize that looking at my past jobs, I was just knocking on the wrong doors, right? And I had the wrong jobs based on how I was wired. And so it's helped me really evolve in terms of who I was as a professional and how I'm able to help other people who are really disenchanted and unfulfilled in their working environment, help them realize this is why. I use them with my clients now, especially those who are not happy or maybe their morale's low, to help my clients, whether they be the senior executives helping their emerging leaders, help them realize, hey, let's place these people in the right spots so that they can feel energized and fulfilled in their jobs. And so this is how the program has helped me help my clients with their teams.
That makes sense. I do remember you saying the 4-page resume now. So can you, for one, that Working Genius is the same reason why I started my own business as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think everyone can say that their first aha Working Genius moment was themselves until they started seeing it in other people as well. And your geniuses are discernment and invention. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. So I could see you getting a read on people and then coming up with ideas of how to elevate them in general. And your frustrations are galvanizing and tenacity, right? Okay.
That's
and
correct.
So I associate that with more of the operations side, the operations manager, the integrator, the COO side of things. So were you ever in a role like that on your 4-page resume?
I think where the positions weren't aligned with who I was probably roles like sales oriented with quotas, or maybe I was a techie in the beginning, right? So I dealt with computers, and so like being able to finalize implementation of software. I was a HR accounting software consultant, and the fun part for me was figuring out how the program was going to help with the departments and really the creative part, like how are we going to fit this square peg in a round hole part of the implementation. But when it got down to actually implementing, I struggled with that part, right? Because it was more just the finalizing of things, the completion of task, as opposed to the ideation part. And so looking back at that, people were rewarded for the implementation part, not necessarily the ideation part, because that's not what I was hired for. It was more the implementation. And so as much as I got joy from the ideation, the creative part of the implementation, when it got down to the finalizing, that's where I struggled. And that's that's really where some of the conflicts I had with my own boss. And
Right.
so that, and just also, like I said, sales quotas. I had fun with the discovery calls with companies and talking to the executives and figuring out how to best help their specific needs and their specific population. So that, again, that's the creative, innovative side, the customization of things. But then when it came down to, okay, am I going to close the deal? I'm going to finalize this this proposal, like this. That was like I do that now because I have to. I'm independent. I have to go through those phases.
Yes.
If I don't do that, I don't work. But it's still not fun for me, right? It's still not the fun part of me. It's more the to do. But again, when we're with an organization and we're rewarding our employees for the implementation side, not necessarily for the ideation side, we do disservice for people who really gravitate and are fulfilled by the ideation side. So that's where I was kind of, I didn't have that fulfillment of being acknowledged for what I love to do. I was,
Right. Okay.
so like I was acknowledged for the things I didn't like to do, which I didn't care about. So the acknowledgement didn't mean a whole lot because
Yes.
it's not what I cared about.
No, I totally understand that. Just I've had several people on her now that were literally getting actual awards for the things that they didn't like to do, like best at this, great at this, employee of the month for this, but it wasn't fulfilling them overly. And then but you also get that you're so good at this at the same time. So it's a huge conflict.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And I also understand the entrepreneurial role of having to be in the whole widget, but you tend to get fueled by your geniuses in order to do the rest of the work, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And IT was a great example, right? It's like I was good at it, right? I could fix things, and I wasn't a coder, but I was a software implementer and software consultant. So I knew computers well. I even taught computers to middle school students. But the part of it, I didn't realize the reason I liked it was the creative aspect of it. It wasn't the tenacity finalizing of things behind computers.
Is that what you were doing when you were introduced to Working Genius?
No, I was a leadership trainer when I was introduced to Working Genius, and a lot of stuff I did evolved around like emotional intelligence. And Working Genius was just another layer that helped me realize that it wasn't just about personality or emotional intelligence. Lencioni talks about productivity. Like, how are we wired in terms of like what we like to do, not necessarily who we are as people, but like what do we like to do? And that was a part that I was like, okay, that's an aspect that I haven't addressed yet. And so it helped with really thinking about the whole person.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Can you tell me how discernment and invention shows up in your training style versus like other trainers that you've been involved with?
Yeah, it's a great question, because you assume a trainer is a galvanizer. When I realized galvanizing was a frustration of mine, I thought, how am I a trainer? I don't galvanize. The bottom line is I don't push, right? I don't push people to do things. I try to inspire them, and how I inspire them is first of all, by listening to them, right? So that the discerning piece is really what I gravitate towards, like in terms of who I am, my trainer or coach. I think I'm more of a coach, right? Because I like to listen, have people talk first, and it helps me kind of like paint a picture of who they are and what their needs are and what their challenges are, what their strengths are. And then based on that, I'm discerning, I'm evaluating, and then my invention kicks in and says, oh, okay, based on that, have you tried this? What about this? Like, I'll ask them different methods of improving whatever they need to improve. So the discernment invention comes in that way. As a trainer, I am not structured. So trainers who know me, sometimes I'm a little frustrating when I'm co-training with somebody where I'm not structured. Some trainers know exactly when break happens, how long a certain segment goes. This should take only 45 minutes. We should have lunch at 11:30, 12 o'clock. I don't know my timeframes because I'm not structured. And I think the not structured isn't so much like an ADD thing. It's more of hey, let's get creative. Let's
Mm-hmm.
like some of my activities are very spontaneous. So I'll just think of a certain activity in the moment and I'll just implement it like right away. So it's not even structured. It's not even in my notes. It's not something I've scripted. It's just something that came to me. And so when I'm training, it's very real time. It's very relatable and relevant. So that helps with how people kind of gravitate towards my training style because it's not structured. So it doesn't seem
Right.
scripted. And so that definitely helps me. And it helps me kind of relate to people while I'm training because I am discerning and inventing kind of on the fly.
Right.
It you know, I don't know if it helps me. It helps me, but if a participant is more structured and they want to follow like an agenda, I think it doesn't bode well for those type of
Right.
learners that they wanted it structured. So I do have to regulate my own discernment and invention while I'm training and appease to the people that need more structure, which is a
Right.
challenge for me, but I need to do it sometimes.
Right. And I think you're reading the room, right? Do you hand out an agenda?
Um, yeah, I have one. like,
But I mean, are
like,
other people
well,
seeing
it's
one
funny
like he's
because
here, he's here?
I have one, but I tell them, hey, this is how I am. Like sometimes I'll have like an inspiration in the middle of the training and it may skew, but I think the beauty of training is when they participate, right? So like when I'm asking them a question,
Yes.
it fuels an energy of communication and collaboration and people are participating. That's the best kind of training. It isn't them sitting there and just having me lecture. To me, that's school, right? And school
Yes.
wasn't as like as it wasn't as vibrant, it wasn't as interesting and engaging. So I do tell people this is the agenda. We're going to try to get through these things, but depending on how the environment is, how the energy of the room, where you guys take us, we may or may not get to certain things, but they love it because they're the ones that drive the training,
Mhm.
right? I give them an environment to learn, and we come up with ideas on how they learn best. And so now if they're the group that just wants to sit there and listen to me, lecture, then yeah, it's not fun for me. But if that's,
Right.
if that's the way they learn, that's the way they learn.
Do you have a trick to getting people involved when you are in a group that's kind of in that mode?
I just force myself to ask questions more.
Okay.
Ask questions more. I tell people just instead of a trainer, we tend to lecture, right? I think to me that's more of the downfall of training is we tend to tell people what to do. People do look for that, but at the same time, I think they're so used to being lectured to, like in school and whatnot, that they're not challenged to think during training. And so, my advice just for trainers is just to turn your statements into questions and to give people time to process and answer, right? I think sometimes we ask questions and we expect them to answer as fast as we're thinking it.
Oh, yeah.
But we gotta, like, when we ask a question, we gotta pause and we gotta be good with silence. I'm good with silence. So after a question, if there's silence, it's not uncomfortable for me to just sit in silence. But to some people, it's so uncomfortable that
Right.
somebody's bound to talk. And so you just sit
Yes.
long. So you sit long enough, somebody's going to answer because they don't like the silence. But that's how I get people engaged. I think it's really important to just ask questions.
Right. Okay. Do you have a good example of a aha moment that someone experienced in one of your training sessions with Working Genius?
Oh, I think just the entire structure is an aha moment, right? Because as I'm going through explaining what Working Genius is and the different 6 activities of work, I mean, just the just the look I get for people, like they, it's like this. You see his light bulbs just going off in them, and it's a positive thing because I emphasize, hey, this is how you're wired. So if you're not that good at a certain element, that's who you are, and then you got to give yourself some grace there. But I do emphasize throughout on my Working Genius training that it's not an excuse. This goes with all assessments, by the way, not just Working Genius.
Right.
Self-discovery is powerful, right? Self-discovery is like self-awareness, self-discovery is great, right? But it isn't it's never an excuse to not challenge yourself, right? So I tell people, don't use this as an excuse not to do something.
Right.
But that self-awareness should encourage you to at least try to improve it at some point, or at least, just don't not do it just because, like, for example, tenacity. If tenacity is frustration of mine, I can't sit here and go, well, I just don't do that because that's just not how I'm built, right? No, I can't, because I'm a solopreneur, so I can't. It's like I can't pay bills. I don't want to pay bills. I'm just gonna
Right.
because I'm not good at it, and then I'd fail, right? So I have to, though, but knowing my shortcomings, what that tells me is like, okay, give yourself some time to do that tenacity work, right? Don't rush yourself to do it, because it's going to take you a while, and do the best you can, right? Because when you give yourself time and you do the best you can, you do have some pride in that, and you actually do get better. So as much as tenacity is a frustration of mine, I've actually improved quite a bit in that area since I got certified in Working Genius, because I just know I need more time. But the practice of being tenacious has developed, right? So I have improved it, which I'm proud to say.
Yeah, yeah. I feel the same way. Just having the language and the knowledge is very helpful. And just like, I know after this, because conversation and the podcast part of my day is really what fuels me and gives me energy. I can knock out probably 10 things on my to-do list after this.
Yeah.
So I know how to fuel myself up to go through the rest of the day.
That's great.
When you were just said that Working Genius gave you the courage to pursue this line of work, or doing something different, can you explain how you developed that courage based on Working Genius? What else gave you the courage, and how you ultimately made that leap?
Yeah, I mean, Working Genius told me I'm a discerner inventor, right? So, which means that I was able to create right from the get-go. I said, okay, I am going to start my own business. What am I going to do? And because it does start with the creative part first. We have to come up with ideas in terms of, what's going to fuel me is definitely one element of that. But to be a successful business, you have to have customers. And so the ideation of like, well, who's going to buy my things? Who's my niche? Who's my ideal client? Like all this stuff is ideation, right? You're thinking about things like that. So being that was my forte, I knew right from the get-go I was going to develop momentum. Right. Momentum is key, because think about it. If you're going to own your own business and ideation, invention, and discernment weren't your strengths, that would be difficult, I think, because you're like, well, what should I do? And you're maybe one, heck, if wonder is not your strength, then how do you even get started? I think is the point. How do you even get started to be an entrepreneur if you don't have W, if you don't have I, you don't have D, you don't have the ideation? You're almost kind of like, well, who do I ask to what type of business I should get into, right? Like, what's the need? If you're not asking questions, you don't even know what the need is. So for me to have that was a forte of mine to get started. Now, knowing my frustrations, I knew I'd say, okay, to be successful in this, I got to get it done. I got to get my website done. I got to get my financials squared away. I got to, I have to make the calls, like the cold calls is a tenacity part. I have to get these things done. So I do lean, like this year, my whole theme this year has been lean into my discomfort. That's my theme for the year.
Oh, okay.
It's like July now. I've been doing pretty well. I've created some videos. That's tenacity. Now, the ideation part of creating videos is fun for me, but then to actually implement it and get it done is the hard part. That's why I've never done it, because just to go through the video processing is like, oh my goodness, it takes forever for me to do it. It does. It takes me a long time to edit and things like that.
Oh yeah.
But because my theme is leaned into my discomfort, I've really leaned into my frustrations almost. while still focusing a lot on my D&I, which helps
Right.
fuel me. You made a great point. I could fuel myself first and then get into the stuff I don't like to do. It's a great visual, right? We're putting
Right.
gas in ourselves first to make sure we have enough energy to get our tenacity work done.
Right. Exactly.
So, but it helped me get into this business because my ideation, but I had to make sure I followed through and implemented my ideas.
Who is your ideal client?
Well, just from experience, I think, we trainers always say we can help everyone, but
Right.
in terms of what I'm passionate about is obviously it's leadership, small to mid-size companies. Just because I think the only reason I say that is because if I could work directly with the executives, if I can meet my ideal client is like a company where I could actually sit down with the CEO
Mm-hmm.
and talk to that CEO about their mission and vision, their why they started the company, who, and what his desire is in terms of helping his employees. And my ideal client already knows that people are the number one asset. Like I don't want to work with organization and try to convince them that no, people are the number one asset because that's like,
Right.
I mean, but they exist. It's crazy to me, but they exist. So that's why my ideal client is small to mid-sized companies where I actually do have access to the executives and they know that people are the number one asset, right? Those are my ideal clients. They already know that. I don't want to have to convince them that.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done something, right? These companies that I really love working with are companies that have tried things. They've had book clubs. They've had some coaches come in. Like they've tried things, right? And so they already know the value of it. Because again, if I'm sitting here trying to convince a company, no, you need to help your employees, that's an uphill battle already, right?
Right.
So I want to help companies that already know people are valuable. It's not just about replacing them with better employees. It's really developing them while they're working for you and giving them some inspiration and value and helping the employees discover who they are and developing a deep bench. Like I like using sports analogies a lot. I
Mm-hmm.
love creating deep benches for employees because that's sustainability. If one person leaves, you got next person up, right? And so I love that philosophy of creating deep benches.
Right. Okay. No, that definitely makes sense. I like to come in on the working genius side in the hiring to put people on the bench, right? To make
Yeah,
sure that language. I've noticed that working genius tends to fall off with hiring, as in you're bringing in people, you're not necessarily training them in the working genius language, and maybe it's fallen off in the culture, and so that's where I when you were talking about the training sessions, and I'm trying to grasp this more and more because I also have looked at training as a talking at people, and that's not something I prefer to do. So I love to hear how other people are doing it because that's where the facilitation drained me when there wasn't a lot of conversation one-on-one. So I noticed that my strength is when people start falling out of the language, stop, you invest the time, invest the money, but still, a month later stop using the system, right? So I like to come in and counsel through that and then ultimately fill in the team map with the new hires and continuing the conversation as you're bringing new people on.
Working Genius has just given us just another of that layer of like, oh my goodness, like it's so unique in terms of its assessment, in terms of the
Mm-hmm.
information that we get from Working Genius is so unique compared to like DISC and MBTI and pair the colors and strengths finders, because it is like, okay, oh, it's the activity of work. Like, and
Right.
you say work is not fun, but then there's aspects of work that we gravitate towards that, like, oh, that actually is fun for me. You know,
No, yeah,
that's that was the epiphany when I saw that. I'm like, oh, work can be fun, because work in itself is not a fun word, but aspect of, but
right.
the creative part for me is so much. That's why I love meeting people who are really like they're E&T, right? They're enablers, they're the helpers, and they're the
Mm-hmm.
tenacity. And whenever I meet my ETs, I say, you guys are employable, right? People love hiring
Yes.
helpers and people to get it done, right? And it's funny because like To me, I'm like, I'm not very employable right now.
No, those are my frustrations. ENT are my frustrations.
Yeah. So I think we're kind of forced to like open our own
Right. I'm
business.
very jealous of them, honestly.
Oh, but they love it, dude. That's why it's like, oh man, you guys are employable, right? You guys are but at the same time, you help them because they may be the ones who have the ideas, who aren't confident enough to express them, or maybe they're introverts, right? We haven't even talked about how MBTI, if they're introverted, then that it's even more of a struggle for them to get their
Oh, yes.
genius out, whatever their genius is.
Yes, that they almost have to be pulled out of them by the people that also understand what the working geniuses are so that they'll actually show up in the room, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So, yeah, no, I love it because when it does, the guilt and judgment is very real. It's like palpable in a room when you walk into it, and then it dissipates just with the language, right? So I love it for that, and for the fact that when I look at other assessments, I feel like you almost have to say, "Will you read my assessment to know who I am and how I should be, and like how to work with me?" When widget is really all you need when you walk into a meeting and know how people are showing up. Like it's simple to just implement right away as long as you keep using it. So for me, it took a minute, well, like 6 months after I was introduced to Working Genius to really believe that joy mattered overall. And then that segued into a lot of changes in my life. And then that's how that's why I wanted to go into this podcast at all, because now, okay, I know joy matters. I want other people to know that joy matters. So if we go into like the personal part of your life with Working Genius overall, or joy, first of all, did you notice a difference in your personal life after Working Genius based on just the changes that you made in your work life? And then what does that look like today for you?
Did it help with my attitude? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and obviously you got to communicate it, just like you have to communicate it at work and say, hey, this tenacity is a frustration I'm going to do. It's going to take me a little longer. Same thing at home, right? You still need to communicate that to your significant other, your child or whatever. Hey, tenacity is just not my genius. It's going to take me a little longer.
Right.
But then at the same time, if, my family, hey, you're creative, what's an idea here? And it definitely brings to light a lot of things. Like when Pat Lencioni talks about the vacations he's taken with his wife, it's like, okay, we're pretty spot on. Like
Right.
I love to plan for it and here's some ideas. But in terms of like excursions and having to be in a timeline during vacations, that's never been me, right? It's
Right.
just
Yeah. No,
so.
I'm the same way. And I have one daughter that it drives her crazy.
Yeah.
She still thinks, she's 13. She's lived with me long enough. She still thinks there's going to be an itinerary, and it has never, ever happened.
Yeah. The only itinerary I have is like, got to get to the airport at some point in 2 hours. So I'm like relaxed. But that it's like, when you're on vacation, you're on vacation. And,
that totally makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, no, my personal life is, like I said, I don't think I'm much different in terms of my personality, but in terms of my work activity, it's easy to say, well, you're better at this. Yeah. But I think that's the danger too, is like using it as a crutch.
Right.
I don't believe in saying, your tenacity is your strength, so you do that. I personally don't think that's the reason to take the assessment.
Right.
But it is to say, hey, I might take a little longer doing this, right? Or I might struggle doing this. Then again, it's the judgment, right? Whether it be self-judgment or judging other people to improve not doing that, I think is why we do this.
Awesome. How are you finding joy currently?
Yeah. Oh, it's never changing. It's always evolving in terms of being an entrepreneur, especially during times where our society is changing as well, right? With AI, ChatGPT, even government changes, like all this stuff is happening. Things that we cannot control, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we're working around the things we can't control. That helps me. Like that just helps me go, okay. So instead of a lot of people like to complain about things like, I don't, yeah, they fight things that they can't control. Whereas if I can't control it, um, my joy is to find workarounds to it, right?
Okay.
Or use it to my advantage, like AI and ChatGPT. I love it.
Mhm.
Because I'm a discerner, right? And so now, and I'm an ideator, and so I don't have, well, being my own discerner, I don't have a discerner around me. ChatGPT is my discerner, right? So I'll ideate something and I'll type it
Yeah.
in, um, evaluate this idea, ask me 10 questions, figure out tell me my blind spots. What am I missing? I ask it all these questions, and it like helps me think of things like, oh my goodness, I didn't even think about that. Uh, and it also helps me kind of plan on how to finish, right? So that's definitely an example of my using ChatGPT and AI as a thought partner versus a
Right.
thought, like we're the thought leaders. There's a book called AI Driven Leader by Jeff Woods that I read that changed the way I saw AI. Like, oh,
Mhm.
yes, they're a thought partner, not a leader. Um, and it fills my gaps in terms of working genius. So
Yeah.
whatever I struggle with, it has helped me tremendously.
Yeah, you have to look you just have to look at it in a different way. I just watched You've Got Mail with my kids to show them like what dial-up was, right? And that the one guy in there is like, computers and technology is going to ruin the world. And I mean, it was in, the 1990s. And that's how people felt about technology then. That's how people feel about
Yeah,
technology now.
exactly.
And yeah, you just have to pivot with the changes. And I also, my geniuses are wonder and discernment. And so I struggle with discerning my own wonder. It gets a little clouded in my head. And
Biases. Yes.
today
Yep.
I asked Chat, I was like, this is such a creative LinkedIn post. I was thinking about it, and I'm still going to be thinking about it. But I asked Chat GPT, I was like, is this okay for LinkedIn? And it gave me some really good parameters to keep the post in. And so I'm still gnawing on it. But I was like, let me just see if this
But I
is
think so to our advantage as discerners, this is why I think it works for us. Like as discerners, we don't just take it for truth. It still gives me stuff and I'm still discerning it, right? I'm still evaluating because it has given me wrong information. There's some
oh yeah.
information I don't agree with. So I will tell it like, this my client won't think this way. And so I do feed it like the way I think.
Right.
But I can see people who aren't discerners. I think the downfall would be to be like, oh yeah, great idea, boom, and just implement it.
Yes. Yeah, no.
It's like, so that's where, so I want to be very clear that my discernment helps me use
Right.
ChatGPT, right? It doesn't, because I am not taking it as truth. But it does give me more ideas to build upon until I'm happy with it. Like we got to
Right.
be, but again, but I do run it by people still. So to be clear too, I'll like get something on LinkedIn or on ChatGPT and I'll say, I have friends who are discerners. I have a friend who's a galvanizer as well. And I recognize that. And I tell them, hey, I'm going to call you if I need galvanizing. I'm going to call you if I need discernment. I use the language
Right.
quite a bit. So people see like, oh, okay, that's why I love it so much too. The language is easy to use in Working Genius. Right? I need my G, I need my
Yeah.
D, I need my I, right? Um,
No, it makes sense. And I've noticed my discernment too. Also, I will respond to any question that is asked of me in the moment to the best of my ability.
mhm,
But if I sit on it for 24 hours, it's probably going to be a little bit different after I've kind of thought about it.
absolutely.
Like there's a processing that I need to do. And usually conversations in this moment tomorrow, I'm like, oh, wait, let me go back to that. And I've been asked, you're still thinking about that? Well, yes.
Yeah.
I haven't been thinking about it the whole time, but all of a sudden, I processed it through, my discernment lens that isn't actually super immediate, in the moment. And I was actually just reading about meetings today and expecting, you know, immediate answers. And some of those, like the tenacious people, are the people, they may have more input if you just give them time later on as well.
Yeah, I love the 24-hour rule that you just said. I implement that too as well. I'll sit on something for 24 hours, and it'll change. You're right. It's like, oh wow, that's not how I thought about it yesterday, even.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like that 24-hour rule. You just said something else that resonated with me as well. Anyway, yeah, I appreciate people who aren't me as well. And so like I do turn to a lot of my tenacity friends and my galvanizing friends, and
Yes.
I empower them, right? I empower them. I say, hey, you're this to me, right? You're my other discerner. That's what I learned too. We can't discern ourselves. There's too much bias.
Oh, yes.
That's what you said. My judgment is clouded. So I don't discern myself. And that's, well, I shouldn't say I don't, because I do.
But you don't necessarily trust that you should be the final answer in that.
I guess I'd be lying if I said I didn't. I trust myself though, right? But
right, yeah. But yeah, I understand what you're saying with the discernment, because it can for yourself, when you're discerning yourself, turn into that analysis type situation where it's like, okay, let me just verbalize this to someone else where I'm not analyzing myself and to paralysis, right?
Oh, that, yeah, good point. So that's what I was going to actually bring up when you said that. Where we are, so I'm a DIW, so that's pretty high level thinking, right? What, I guess my question for myself, like I just thought about this now, what gets me going though, right? Because it is the danger of being a DIW is that it is the ideator. We're like 30,000 feet in the air in terms of like the flight analogy. How do we get started landing, right? So what is that? You know, what inspires us to get going? Because we shouldn't spend too much time where we are, right?
Right.
So what inspires us to get going? I don't know. I think I'm just kind of a risk taker too. I don't know where risk takers fall in that continuum.
Right. I would say they probably, I mean, and it is interesting too, being a risk taker with discernment, honestly, for me.
Mm-hmm.
It feels very devil angel on my shoulder, but I would say risk takers are definitely probably in the ideation phase. And you said DI, so you are DIW, I'm WDI.
Yeah, so you and I can talk forever, right? Well, and that's the thing. Like we think ideas and like how do we get moved? I've actually forced myself when I'm in groups. I am a lot better at getting going, right? I don't, even though I am that DIW, I do say, okay, let's go, let's keep moving.
Yes.
And that might be a different aspect of another assessment, right? Because tenacity is not my drive, but I just know we have to get things done, right? It's not necessarily, it gives me joy and energy per se,
Right.
but I know it's important.
Right. And you can see the end, you can see the end of the line. Like, you know how it ultimately is going to serve you and the business. My former business partner, we were both W's. And yeah,
we wondering all day long.
Yeah, we wondered and wondered and wondered. We had so many good ideas. We had such great brainstorming sessions.
Yeah.
And yes, we needed that tenacity desperately.
Well, I wonder, like sometimes I think we kind of we have this vision of what these types look like, right? And sometimes it's almost to the extreme. So as much as like tenacity people are going, I wonder if James just sits there and does this all day, right? like I have an idea. I wonder if that's what they think about me. And I'm sitting there going, and I'm thinking of tenacity people. All they're doing is like, boom, like
crunching the numbers. Yes,
crunching numbers, checking off lists and stuff like that. I think those are like definitely extreme examples.
Right.
I don't know, but that's
why we need each other. That's why we need to be in the room together to flesh out the whole thing. And again, that's why I love using it for hiring, because when you see those gaps, in the team map. Like, I was on a leadership team, and there was no discernment on there until I came on to the team, and it would just be like the ideas, implement. And nobody was asking any questions about whether we should even be doing it. And they didn't love it either, right? They didn't a person in the ideation phase does not love to be questioned on whether it's a good idea or not. So you have to have.
You just reminded me, I'll go back to your question about the personal. So that's another thing that in terms of my wife, she has this thing. Why do you question everything? Right. So it frustrates her that I question things. And then when I took this assessment,
it's like judgy, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's curious.
And so, but when I took this assessment, she goes, "Oh man, you're just wired for that." Doesn't mean she likes it. Doesn't mean she likes it anymore.
Right.
Still me poking holes, like the negative connotation of guy, you poke holes at everything. Yeah, I mean, my brain works that way, right? It's but it is about this another part of Working Genius that I really appreciate, and it's in one of the more recent podcasts, Working Genius podcast. Lencioni talks about regulating your geniuses, right? It's controlling, even though it's your genius, doesn't mean that you do it all the time. Then there's negative aspects of your geniuses, right? It's not always positive, especially if the timing's wrong and if you do too much, right? It's not, if you're not regulating it, it comes out as a frustration for other people. Mm-hmm. And so being able to identify, when to use it, how to use it, the timing of it is really, it's vital.
Right. And I think the discussions can be very civil just by having the language to it.
Yeah, because you're not judging people, right? It's like,
right.
James and his ideas again, right? And I almost take it as a compliment. Like, yeah, I have a lot of idedes. Like
when it shows up in the right place, it's the necessary element. And I would encourage everyone to. I think I just read the book this year. I did it all kind of backwards. I read the 6 Types of Working Genius, but it is a great read. I think it's even better on Audible as well. And then when I met you and you were telling me about your resume, I was like, you are the book.
I am the book.
So and it's a great read because it's more of a story. It's a storyline versus like a textbook type.
I tell people though, take the assessment first, then read it, because when you read the book, you're already kind of thinking, who am I? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's me. The danger of that though is like sometimes, again, it's all about when you do something well, you peg yourself as that. But my example of computers is I did computers well, but I hated it, right? It's like that's the danger of trying to self-evaluate or evaluate other people, because just because they do it well, it doesn't necessarily mean they're actually getting energy from it.
Right.
I have a friend who said, I'm great at all 6. I'm like, okay. So we went through each one of them and he gave me examples of how he was great at them. And my question after the example was, so are you tired after you do it? And he said, actually, yeah, that makes me tired. Okay. So that's not a genius, right? So it is about the energy.
Yes. No. And I've counseled people in, I'm looking for a health coach right now, and then someone that needs more of an engineering role. And I've talked to engineers with their engineering degrees. And again, with that lengthy resume you're talking about. And I understand that you went to school for this, but I have to tell you, you actually don't like this work. Right. And like, what before you went to school, what was your dream? What did you want to do? And I had one that he wants to coach sports. So even if he stays in the engineering role, I just encouraged him to get into that in some way. But I also could not hire him for this job because I knew he was going to bounce just like he had been. So I've asked him, like, what are the tasks that you do that make you go home and feel alive and ready to hang with your family, and the tasks that you do that make you feel like you just need to go home and go to sleep. and lounge around. And
Uh,
it makes all the difference. And it's
yes.
I'm any recruiter is doing a company a disservice by hiring someone that can and has the resume for it, but actually hates it. It does not
Well, we
work.
don't, we don't know what we don't know. I think initially, especially you go to high school and you're 17 years old, 18 years old, you go to college, right? We're expecting people to pick a major and like that.
Yes.
In hindsight, it's like, oh my God, that's like the horrible. It's like the most, I think the minority of people know what they want to do right at high school, like very little percentage, to be
Yes.
honest with you. And so, but now with this language, we get to give this to high schoolers and college
Right.
people and
No, I had
say,
my daughter just take it.
do not build your resume around something that frustrates you. But we don't
Yes.
know, right? We just know it makes money and we're making a living, especially in California. It's like we need to make money, right? To survive here. So I think sometimes we say we don't have a choice. Yeah, to an extent, right? So to an extent, we can't always. Lencioni's point about, hey, as long as your job is 51% of your genius, you're
Right.
good. That makes sense. It's like, okay, 51% is like towards my genius. I'm probably pretty happy. I think people who expect their job to be like 90, 100% of their genius, I think it's a rude awakening because I don't think any
No.
job is
No,
going
no,
to do
no, no,
that,
no.
right?
I
So
don't think that
I
that
think
is
that
that
was a really good point on his. It wasn't tried and true. It's not scientifically proven, but it makes a lot of sense that if 51% of your job is your genius, you're probably pretty happy.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Well, James, tell us how we can get in touch with you. I know that you have California in your business name, but you're all over the country. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's definitely a misnomer. I mean, coaching California is something I've had since 2014, and I do pride myself in helping people here. But I have traveled around the country, and I'm hoping to go around the world with this stuff. But I coachingcalifornia.com is pretty easy to remember. That's my website, but I am available for travel, and easy to. LinkedIn is
LinkedIn. Yeah.
probably also a lot of information on LinkedIn as well. Find me there. I do produce YouTube videos. YouTube channel is called Lead Like You
Okay.
is my YouTube channel, and I have, I don't know, a dozen videos on there that just various topics of leadership with the emerging leader in mind, or their bosses or the senior leaders in mind as well. So,
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us
yeah,
today and
thanks for having
sharing
me.
your insights. I
Appreciate it.
hope we talk again soon. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Julie. Take care.